What's up, guys? This video is going to be, I think, a pretty cool video. We're diving into a conversation between me and another fellow trainer. So everybody can say hello to Mr. Justin Rigney. Mr. Justin Rigney was watching one of my videos the other day, and he gave a nice compliment. I'll put it up here on the screen. And he asked me a question about what it is that I was doing. So in the question, he says, "I love it, man. Awesome work and method. What are your thoughts on tapping into building forward active aggression and power?" And so, Mr. Rigney, I figured the best way to do this would be super cool for our followers and also do this like with two ways. So we're going to answer your question and then create some content to give people a little bit of insight into the bite work, what I do developing, and a lot of common misconceptions or a lot of things that are taking place that people don't recognize or see due to the traditional ways of training. All right, so before we jump into answering this question, what we're going to do is we're going to bring up some of this video on the screen and we're going to show everybody what it is that we're referencing, the video that was in discussion. A couple days ago, I put up a video of my 5-month-old puppy, Rafa, and this video was just a demonstration of skill set and ability. It had nothing to do with anything about intensity, the dog just being over the top or super strong. It really is just demonstrating the dog's comprehension to be able to perform the task at hand. In this video, we have the dog, he's taking a bite, and I'm showing all of our viewers and teaching people about the system and the ability to relay information to the dog, to move the dog into any position that I desire while the dog is on the bite. So what that means is if the dog's in front of me, I can move him into heel position, and then I can have him go from heel position back in front of me, and then I can move backwards and the dog moves into me, and then even when I move into the dog continues to move into me, staying straight in front of me while it goes backwards, up and over objects. It's also demonstrating, I have a section where I have my wife zoom into the bite. The bite couldn't get any deeper. But overall, no, the dog is not hitting me at 1,000 miles an hour. He's taking bites right in front of me. I'm talking to the camera in a full conversation. I'm more so just showing people what it is that the dog can do with the system. There's plenty of time to bring in an intensity. And I'll get into why I don't show the intensity. And I'm also going to show you the intensity of the dog here in just a second. So we're going to dive into this question. And so a lot of trainers, they're so used to doing agitation work, building the dog up as it's referred to, tapping into drive, different types of drive. I don't focus on any of that stuff. I just teach the dog to bite. I keep things very simple and very easy for people to understand and learn, because the more complicated we make it, the more difficult we make it for people and the dog, the harder it is for people to learn and progress. So that's one of the things that I like about what I do, is I have the ability, it's kind of something that I feel like I'm blessed to do. I have the ability to relay information to not only dogs, but people in a way that makes sense for them to be able to replicate the same processes, especially when they come into the school. The hard part, like I say, is it's very hard for me to teach trainers simply because of the fact that trainers have been conditioned to believe and see things a certain way and discuss things with certain terminology that has new, redefined definitions. An example of that would be obedience and protection. Let's just make this super clear. The definition of obedience is compliance with an order or command. So that means that anything you command the dog to do or tell the dog to do is obedience by definition. But whenever we look at protection or we look at obedience, they're always separated. Obedience has nothing to do with protection in the dog world, and protection has nothing to do with obedience in the dog world. That's why a lot of people have a myth out there, they believe and follow a myth that control, which is obedience, kills drive. That's why a lot of people won't put a collar on a puppy at 9 weeks old. We're going to bring some videos up of me doing that. In fact, the dog that's in question in this video, the first week I picked him up, I put an electronic collar on him and I take him to a police canine conference where I teach classes, and I'm demoing the puppy off leash in the foyer with hundreds of people walking around, in the classroom with hundreds of people, in the vendor hall with people walking around, lounge music, bands, drinking, all that stuff. And I'm just teaching the dog the way that I teach and relay information, and that's through touch and movement. So before we get into these, like I said, we're going to pull up a video that I took to demonstrate intensity with this dog. I also want you to pay attention to the level of intensity is higher in this dog just a few days later. And it's not because I spent time building intensity. It's because I asked for more intensity through interaction. But you'll also notice that I'm not jumping up and down. I'm not agitating. I'm just moving backwards in a way. And then I brought something else out to demonstrate something, setting up for another video I'm about to show you after this video. So let's look at that real quick. All right, so right off the bat in this video, we're just presenting a whip. As soon as I make motion for the whip, he doesn't know what that is. He just sees me move and he releases himself to come bite. Why? Because we haven't done a lot of long sins. So in his mind, he's used to biting from right in front of me. But I want you to see the level of intensity that he brings now. There's even vocalization inside of there, the pushing in, the grabbing deeper and deeper, all that stuff. That's a level of intensity that is already inside the dog. I don't need to build anything or do anything. The dog's just there. In fact, I don't want this present right now. Why do I not want this present? I want the dog to be level-headed. The more level-headed and calm the dog is, the more relaxed he is, which means the more receptive he is. Now you're seeing that a lot of the movements that I did in the prior video where he appeared to not have a lot of intensity or drive are trickling over into the intensity now. So he knows how to climb up me, he knows how to have a deep grip, he knows how to spin and turn with me, he knows how to stay in front of me. There's no spinning out, there's no avoidance, there's no pulling. He's just digging deeper and deeper. So now you're seeing me calm him back down again. We went from super intense to we're gonna calm back down again, which is why you see me doing very nice, long, stroking, calm pets on top of his head. But you also see this right here, the ability to transfer the intensity from the bite out immediately and then send to another task. That's very difficult for people who have been training dogs for a very long time to do. And that slow, steady, changing gears, transitioning from this to this, that helps develop all of that. All right, so as you guys can see in this video, there's a little bit more intensity. And I'm not doing a lot more agitation. As far as the whip goes, the whip is brand new being introduced to him. It's more the motion from the whip that's activating him to come across the room. I haven't done long sends with him before, and I wouldn't call that a long send. It's longer compared to where he's normally biting, which is just right in front of me. All right, so why do I not agitate? Why do I not build the dog up or put him on a back tie or put him on a table and do all this stuff? Well, it's very simple. In the dog training world, we develop belief systems that we would never apply to anywhere else in our life. You could hear in the video that by working him a little bit more intensely, and again, just a little bit more, it brought a lot out in him. He's clawing, trying to get up me. He's being vocal. He's really shoving into the bite. Even when I have him on the ground, his back is arched as he's digging into the rubber floor, trying to go forward. And the intensity even travels over into the retrieve, demonstrating the same capabilities. Everything I showed in the first video that we're referencing is the ability to understand how to do things. That takes a clear, level-headed situation for the dog to process new information. When you put a dog on a table and you restrict them and you amp them up and agitate them, it puts them in a state of mind to where they get so overloaded and so focused on one specific thing, it makes it hard for you to enter new information to the dog that's not biting. And so it's very important for me for the dog to be receptive to what I'm asking for. I already know this dog possesses power. I have no doubt in my mind this dog is going to be another powerhouse because his genetic makeup and his desire to bite is there. It's not something I have to build into the dog. Think about it. Where else in your life would you be taught that when you're learning a new skill set to just go crazy and go wild? So wild that you're no longer receptive to the person that you're supposed to be listening to. We wouldn't do driving that way. We wouldn't do cooking that way. No one would tell you just like get in the car and just floor it. Just shove that pedal down to the ground and just take off and go wherever you want to go. They wouldn't say like, don't worry about measuring for this recipe. Just throw whatever you want to in there, crank the oven to whatever temperature you want. It'll come out perfectly fine. Nobody would do that. So this is the mindset. This ability here is what allowed me to break a record or set a record for having the youngest dog ever to compete in PSA and achieve a level 3 title. I think the sport's been around for 20 plus years and there's only 50 people or so just recently now that have achieved a level 3. And we did this as the youngest dog ever and the fastest time to ever do so. It's kind of hand in hand. You got to have both of them together to set that title. But my point that I'm making is I teach level-headed very clear to a strong dog that I know possesses strong qualities. We're going to jump into this video. This video is going to demonstrate what I actually want my dogs doing in states of or situations where we're doing agitation. I don't want them to react to cans or noises or agitation from the decoy. I want them to listen to me. So let's take a look at that. So this video is a few minutes after the first crack whip that we just showed you from the last video. In this video, we're demonstrating we are already conditioning the dog that when we crack the whip, your job is to stay there stationary, paying attention to me, and when I want you to do something, I will let you know. I do not want my dog to be in a state of mind where he allows himself to go after something or pursue somebody because they made a motion or they heard a sound. To me, that is extremely dangerous. I also don't want my dog to lose his mind whenever he sees somebody do something. All right, so you can see in that video, we've taken something in the same session. It's about a 10-minute session in that video. And in the beginning, the dog understood that me cracking the whip or me moving my arm meant that he could come and pursue on the bite. Even when we're cracking the whip while he's on the bite, there was no don't bite. So we took the same dog and then we put a level of control and understanding on the dog in the same session and taught the dog that cracking the whip now means to sit there, stay there, pay attention to me, and don't do anything until I tell you to. And the dog's desire to perform is still very strong, besides the fatigue kicking in. He's a 5-month-old puppy on bites for long periods of time, driving in, pushing in, which takes a lot of energy. Other than that, everything is still there and very intense. That's what I love about our system, the ability to teach a lot of things very fast without losing the desire to work. Super, super important. So now I'm gonna bring up several videos because this is what I love doing. I love teaching people about our system and what we do and what I look for. So before and as I'm bringing up these videos, we're gonna dive into, Justin, all your questions. Everybody saw where he says, love it, man, awesome work. I'll bring that back up. What are your thoughts on tapping into building forward active aggression and power? Well, all that's being done in the videos, in the video you even commented on. It's just that I have the ability to tell the dog at what level and intensity I want the dog to perform. And what you saw, and the reason why I would say you would even ask that is because I assumed you didn't see power, forward aggression, and all that stuff that you requested. And there's nothing wrong with that. I don't take that as a knock. I don't take that as anybody. Everybody's perception is their own. It just is what it is. I think it's a great question because a lot of people say the same thing. I asked you, say thank you. I think we have different definitions of forward active aggression and power. To be sure, could you define your question in details from a performance perspective? So I'm asking Justin, can you explain to me in detail what that looks like? And so let's jump into this. Forward, confident, dominant posture moving towards the target prior to the bite, as well as when on the bite with purposeful aggression and intent. That's all demonstrated in those videos. And then all these videos, I'm going to bring these videos up too. I'll be playing videos throughout this with dogs, young dogs, and even older dogs that I've trained, where everything that I'm teaching with them is moving in, conditioning forward drive, digging deeper, getting better grips, all that stuff. Now we're going to jump into your next one. Your next one says active aggression. The dog has been empowered and has learned to initiate intrinsic offensive aggression absent of external stimuli. To be honest with you, that's the one thing, like, I'm going to stop right here for a second. I think it's amazing that you can talk this way and that you know what you want and you're very detailed. A lot of people are. It shows that you're very educated. I have an 8th grade education level. A lot of these words I have to look up, and I had to look up, like intrinsic. I had to look up the definition of that, and I found out that from what I understand, if I'm correct, that means natural. Offensive aggression, I don't know what that is. I don't know if that's a dog training term or not. I know people talk about prey and defense. I'm just of the state of mind, if I tell the dog to bite, I don't care what the person's doing, I want them to bite. I want them to bite where I want them to bite and for the duration of time of how long I want them to bite, the way I want them to bite. And no matter what's happening, if I tell the dog to let go, I want the dog to let go. That's my mindset. I don't get into these terms and everything like that. So everybody knows. Absent of external stimulus, like even that I had to, like, you helped me out because you put in parentheses passive targets. That's the way I look at it, is passive, non-moving, which can be demonstrated with deep, strong, powerful guttural barking with a solid rhythmic display of pitch, cadence, and tone prior to making contact with the target once on the bite. Okay, so we'll stop there because that's the second one. So you're describing what you want to see before the bite. The barking I don't really care about. I just want the dog to be attentive to what I tell them to be attentive to. So if I tell the dog to heel, I want him looking at me. If I tell the dog to mark, I want him looking at the object. But I want him dedicated to what it is 100%. I think I demonstrate that in the videos too. If I want the dog fixated on the decoy, he's fully fixated on the decoy. He's just level-headed about it. If I want him to be fixated on me, he's fixated on me. I just want him level-headed. The barking, I do teach an alert. I've got videos where I'm teaching the dog to bark at objects. I can have him bark at trees, chairs, people, toys, whatever it is. I want him to bark aggressively at it until I tell him to stop or do something with it. But I don't think anything about rhythmic. That makes me think about IGP training, where people send the dog to a blind and they have the dog barking rhythmically on that. To me, barking has nothing to do with how a dog bites. That's why I'm not worried about it. But again, everybody has their own thing of what they want. Once on the bite, active aggression is demonstrated with forward violent push biting and can be followed up with a head banging behavior. Yeah, I think we're talking about the same thing and doing the same thing. When, again, all these videos coming up that I'm putting on the screen of the dog driving into the bite, eliminating pulling, even with retrieve objects. Like, this isn't even just a bite work thing. I'm having the dogs do this on objects they retrieve because I teach bite work through all my retrieving fundamentals. In front of me with a retrieve, driving into me represents bicep bite. and heel position driving forward beside me into my hand represents a tricep bite. Both represent leg bites as well too. And they're just grinding into that bite. Further demonstrating true predatory aggression, not what's on the judge's clipboard. See, I don't know where that comes from, and I don't know if that's like I know people look at this, like trainers are like this. Police dog's different than protection dog's different than sport dog's different than pet dog. I don't believe that at all. I just don't, I never have. And again, it's open for opinion. I just know that my dogs bite. They're not material fixated. They're not just target trained. So what I mean by that is if I tell the dog to bite, he has targets where he's supposed to bite. But if those targets are not available, he has free rein to grab whatever. Those are called fend-offs. For those of you that don't know, a fend-off is where you send the dog to bite somebody and they have an object in their hand that prevents the dog from being able to access the area they're trained to bite. A lot of people do not like to do fend-offs with my dogs. They'll grab whatever, hands, face, feet. If it's available, they're taking it. So I'm not worried about any of that stuff. So I don't know what that means, because you describe it as further demonstrating true predatory aggression. And maybe you have an example of that or whatever it is, I don't know. But I just know my dogs bite and do what they're doing, especially in the video. Through proper conditioning, this becomes a reflex response to pressure, violence, and conflict. Yeah, my dogs are trained, and I'll demonstrate this. I'll put this video up now. These videos, there's two of them. They're two separate dogs. One's from Holland. Dutch Shepherds, German Shepherds, Malinois, all throughout his pedigree. He's, I'm not going to say the kennel. And then the other one is from Colombia. Totally different. True Malinois through and through. Two different dogs, two different ages, two different parts of the world. And we're demonstrating the same behavior in a bite that's pretty passive. And what you'll see is as I'm escalating the behavior with the dogs intensify. As I de-escalate, the dogs de-escalate. So what that means is they don't come off the bite. They're dedicated to the bite, forward pushing, driving in, but they stay in with the fight. To me, that reserves energy and keeps the dog level-headed, but it also keeps the dog in a position of power. That's super important to me. So I don't want a dog that's like nasty, aggressive. When I send him, he's going 100 miles an hour, just killing everybody in sight. And again, it's preferences. Do you like sports cars, trucks? Do you like Pepsi, Coca-Cola? That's just preference thing. But we can teach that if that's what people like. And that's what people like about when they come to the school. I get people tell me like, I like the fact that you just let us teach whatever we need to teach. I ask people what they want. And when they tell me what they want, I just show them how to install it into the dog. So people don't even have to have a pushing and bite. An example would be, I've had a lot of law enforcement where they're like, that wouldn't work for me. And I go, why? Well, there's times where I need the dog to pull somebody out from underneath a trailer or out of an attic. And I'm like, that totally makes sense. We can teach your dog how to do that. And I'll put this video in the description above, and I'll title it Push, Hold, and Pull. And I'm demonstrating with one of my dogs where I can have him hold an object and he can perform all three of those for the duration of however long I tell him to, with the same object over and over again. So you don't just even have to have one set way. You can train the dog to do that multiple ways. But I think overall, through all these videos that I'm demonstrating on here, very young dogs, very young puppies, pushing in, backs arched, driving into the ground, moving into the bite over and over again. I think that I do demonstrate the ability to do that. I think that with the two clips first, the one that we talk about in the video that you commented on, where the dog seems like he's just kind of there, because that's what we're asking for, and then going into the next video where the dog's showing a level of intensity, I think that demonstrates our ability in our training system and communication with the dog to gauge and let the dog know how much intensity we want the dog to bring. And I can even do another video later on where it looks like the dog's just like stagnant on the bite. The same dog you just saw is stagnant on the bite. And again, communication at its finest. And then also you go down in here too, we'll pull this up. Below, you say below is a training system which has the potential to produce an aforementioned, I didn't know what that means. I don't even know how to say that word, to be honest with you. I had to look that up, and it's like discussed prior. So that's what I mean, like, that's hard for me. So that causes confusion for me and interruption. And again, good for you, man. That's amazing. But the trilogy of aggression, you go into like, I don't know if this is your system or like things you teach. But yeah, man, like I'm all for it. Promote, do your thing. Like, I don't care if you post videos on my videos. I created a group training page on Facebook for people to be able to get together and post whatever, their business, advertisements, their sports, everything, everybody join together and just share the education. But I hope I answered all your questions. I hope you guys learned something about the training. Again, why I don't use tables, tiebacks, restrictions. I don't like amping the dog up. I don't want to put the dog in a state of mind where they're so like hyped up that they can't process what I'm telling them. I believe in teaching and conditioning control before we turn the dog loose. I want the dog to have a clear understanding of what it is that I want him to do before I take him to a level to where he can't focus on anything else other than what he's being asked to do. At the same time too, I like being able to move around. It's important for me because movement is a huge part of our training system. Why? Because dogs are physical. They engage physically through movement and physical interaction, which is touch. That's their primary way of processing and relaying information. So for me, anytime there's restriction, but I'll also have you know, I proof behaviors too, which means that we take movement away. And every trainer's full goal at the end is to get the dog to respond to verbal commands, which is why when you're competing in sports, you're penalized for giving any physical handler help to the dog because they know the dog's primary way of engagement and understanding is through physical movement. So any physical movement that gives the dog information, you're penalized. The dog has to respond to verbal command only or else you're getting hit hard. But I think I demonstrate through all that. So anyways, I think this video was super fun. I hope you guys enjoyed it. We should start doing more of these with everybody and all their questions and comments. I'm also thinking about doing lives. A bunch of people have told me I need to start going live, training my dogs on lives and answering people's questions. I think I'm going to get into that. I got to figure out how to do that. I don't know how to do all that stuff. But as always, thank you guys for watching, and we will see you guys next video.